So not long after I came to Unity of the Blue Ridge, I was asked to meet with Jessica Ayala. 10 years ago, when her first son was, how old was Jack? Her first son was 3, and the second one was still a divine idea, yet to be here. And I learned about Jessica that she grew up in Unity, which you don't hear that very often. But when she was a little spiritual girl, her mom took her into Unity of Knoxville, Tennessee. And as she began to grow up, she had a love for books and began to read in the Unity bookstore and immersed herself in metaphysics and these things as a young girl. She got involved in youth programs and became what's called a YOU, Youth of Unity. She was involved, and so when she came here, she eventually began working with our youth. And I've had the joy and the privilege of meeting with her several times over those years. I call her my spiritual daughter because she's just I have such a special connection to her. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we were meeting one time, and I said, Jessica, when are you going to write a book? And she said, how did you know? And I said, I just know. And I want to tell you, her book was just released, that she is now, she's an author. And so Jessica grew up in Unity. She's a mother of 2 boys who are part of our Sunday school. Her husband is a great chef, but he works all the time, so we rarely get to see him. He does exist, though. I have actually seen him. She's a beautiful teacher, beginning to speak. She's an entrepreneur, business owner, but it's my joy to welcome her today to share from her heart, Jessica Ayala.
Hi. Oh man, try to get through this. So yeah, I wrote a book, and there's a lot of stuff in there. There's words, sentences, paragraphs, and I was actually really when I met with Reverend Darlene about speaking today. She mentioned that the first theme of the month is hope for Advent. It's hope. And my first, I said yes, and I'm glad I did. But my first kind of feeling was like, hope. And here's why. I have for a long time associated hope with a desired outcome, like relying on a desired outcome. And in the process of writing this book, I can't say how many times I have given up hope in a sense. I mean, I kept going, I kept persevering, but there were times when I was like, what am I doing? I mean, even now, I'm like, what did I do? And the reason why, so here's my relationship with hope. I would use hope like, I sure hope I write a book. Right? There's a desire, there's an outcome to it. Or I hope I win the lottery. I hope I don't fall when I'm walking up the stairs to get on the stage. There's a desired outcome with this word hope, or with this idea of hope. And what happens is, and then, of course, let me back up a little. Of course, every 4 years, there is something that happens in our country where a lot of people do not get what they hope for. And what happens when that is the case? We give up hope, we lose hope, we become hopeless. And so at some point, I kind of lost that connection with the word hope. There's an author and motivational speaker named David Goggins. Does anybody know who David Goggins is? He is a machine when it comes to mental and physical toughness. He's a military man. If you like explicit and profane motivation, he is your guy. Because he will get you where you want to go. And my friend and I have been sending videos of him to one another to help us stay committed in this, in our workout routine. And to give a little background about him, he was a former Navy SEAL. who endured a lot of abuse from his father. He grew up in a very traumatic upbringing, and he was able to persevere. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take a second. Let me practice stillness for a second. Where's Megan? Is Megan in here? Okay, she's in the back. When I saw her this morning, she's like, look, if all else fails, just stop and say stillness. Like, it's good. So Goggins, he's a former Navy SEAL, and he endured a lot of like a traumatic childhood. When he was in his 20s, he was close to 300 pounds, and he was making $1,000 a month exterminating cockroaches. He was absolutely miserable, and he was not happy about the kind of person that he was. Well, one day, he watched a documentary on the Navy SEALs, and it sparked something within him. He was at a rock bottom place, and something within him was sparked, and he began to have this vision of himself doing something great, pushing himself, reaching beyond the limits of what he thought he was capable of. And he decided he was going to enlist in the Navy SEALs. Well, the first time he goes to enlist, he's rejected because he doesn't meet the physical requirements. He's close to 300 pounds. He doesn't meet them. But there was something within him that was ongoing, and he decided he was going to make it work. So he began working out, changed his diet drastically, and the next time he went to enlist, he was accepted as a Navy SEAL. What I find to be immensely impressionable about David Goggins is his ability to endure suffering on purpose. And he has a couple of books, and just his mentality has been pretty inspiring to me. He's hardcore. Look, some of his sayings are, stay hard, and they don't know me, and that's how he gets through adversity. Well, many of his instructors were relentless. They were constantly in the cadets' faces. They were pushing them above and beyond their limits. And he found a way to embrace it all. He found a way to embrace adversity. A lot of his story reminds me of Thich Nhat Hanh, a philosophy that Thich Nhat Hanh shares, which is about learning to suffer well. And he says, when you learn to suffer, you suffer much less. And you understand how to use your suffering to create joy and happiness. And so there's this video of Goggins where he talks about an experience in the military where they're doing these endurance runs. And in these endurance runs, they always know where the beginning and the end is. There's an end in sight. He says that on these runs, oftentimes when they would start to head back toward the finish line, the cadets would become happy. The end was near. They could see it. It was what they desired. It's what they wanted to happen. And so they would start to get toward the finish line, and the instructors would sense that happiness, and they would keep on running. They would run right past the finish line. And he said when that happened, you could sense the cadets' heads, they would just drop. And they were back into that despair and disappointment of that end goal not being reached. So all of this is to say that I've learned two things about hope. The first thing that I've learned is that hope is that there's two different meanings. Hope as a verb is to desire or expect something to happen in the near future. And back up again. Hope as a verb is to desire or expect something to happen in the near future. It's an outcome to something. It's relying on it. David Goggins called this the hope factor. It's relying on the hope factor. And essentially what it means is that once you either get on the stage and my hope is met, I did not fall, or I fell and I'm lying on the floor, then that hope changes and becomes something different, or it just ends. But hope as a noun has a bit of a different meaning. Hope as a noun is the feeling of expectancy that something good will occur in the future. And it's a continued expectancy. There is no end to it. In Hebrew, there are several variations for the word hope. There's tikva, yakal, and kawal. And no, I'm not pronouncing any of those correctly, most likely. But at its essence, the word hope in the spiritual sense is it's continually awaiting God for a God-given goal. It's to have patience and to be goal-oriented in the spiritual sense. In ancient Greek, the word for hope is elpis, and the first reference of it is found in the story of Pandora's box. And in this story, it's referenced as something that's not meant to be released to the world. It's something contained within us. We carry it. It's like our soul's narrative. And even though there's external forces around us that we can't control, we always have hope within us. This resonates with me so much because on this journey, I kept thinking that, like, I would put, I'm going to have this book done by, this date at this time, and then it wouldn't happen. And I would be, like, deflated. I'm like, oh, God, it's never going to happen. And then I'd put another date on my calendar. I'd be like, well, that's the time I'm going to do it. And I would just, try to make it happen, try to force it. And I've learned that we really have to grow into our desires. Like that hope that we carry, that God-given hope we carry, it's part of our DNA, but we grow into it. And so with this new information of hope, and I'm so happy that I got to just explore it, I've learned, this is what came through me when I was just reflecting upon it, is hope is an endless yearning of the heart carried by a holy vision, a vision that perceives the world, others, and oneself through a lens of sacredness and higher truth, beyond the surface of appearances and in pursuit of a divinely inspired mission. I just want to read that again. Hope is an endless yearning of the heart, carried by a holy vision, a vision that sees the world, others, and oneself through a lens of sacredness and higher truth, despite appearances, and in pursuit of a holy inspired mission, a divine inspired mission. Now that is a definition I can get behind. Which brings me to the second thing I learned about hope, which is that hope is a curved path that thrives in the darkness. Darkness, adversity, is fertile ground for hope because it is when the light is dim that our yearning becomes that much more vivid. South African bishop and civil rights activist Desmond Tutu once said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all darkness." And as far as hope living on a curved path, there's a metaphorical argument that hope lives on an arc. And this was introduced by a Unitarian minister and transcendentalist named Theodore Parker. And he said in an 1853 sermon, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eyes reach but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice." This philosophy was later popularized by Martin Luther King Jr., who throughout the civil rights movement, declared, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." And he encouraged people to be active participants of bending that arc. And this just reminds me of just so many challenges we face, so many things we go through, and we can't see the progress we're making, and sometimes it feels like no progress is being made at all, and yet that holy vision remains intact. It doesn't go away, and that's because it's for us to do. And there are so many master teachers before us that have shown that the hope is truly ongoing. It's just continuous. We're continually reaching new heights of, but it's always rising and bending toward the divine goal. So the question that came up for me was, well, how do we stay to be active participants in hope? And I believe the answer is to discover stillness. Not stillness as the verb, which is the absence of movement, but stillness as a consciousness, a constant connection to divine mind that is always available to guide us forward, even whenever it's dark. Stillness, like hope, was a word that I didn't resonate with after a period of time. And the reason for that is, as Reverend Darlene said, is I grew up in unity, and I'm so thankful for that. And I learned to meditate at an early age. And throughout my young life, I found it easy to be physically still. When I was in the midst of adversity and chaos, it's easy when you're one person with no responsibilities to sit and be quiet and physically still. But then my role changed. I became a mother, a business owner, a partner, a wife, and those moments of physical stillness became few and far between. And I got really frustrated. There was a period of time in my life where I just hit a rock bottom before the book. And I couldn't see my way out of it. I was so exhausted physically and mentally. And I remember seeing Reverend Darlene in those early periods of time, and she said, there was one meeting, she said, what I see is like a little slug bug, and you're in there like a giraffe wanting to put her head through the sunroof, and you can't do it. Basically, it's kind of what I remember, is just being squished and feeling like I needed to grow. I had a yearning on my heart to grow. And at one point, I just got sick and tired of feeling so stuck and confined and frustrated with myself for not being able to be physically still. And I began to follow this yearning on my heart for a holy vision of experiencing stillness in every moment, not just when I was able to be motionless, but in the chaos, as I'm moving, as I'm being a mom, as I'm navigating life. And this led me on a deep dive into stillness. And on that deep dive, I came across a definition that I had never seen before. And it explains stillness as a state of freedom from storm or disturbance. A state of freedom from storm or disturbance. Well, a state is a mindset of freedom. No one told me. And it sparked what I call my inner rebel, was sparked by those words. And I became committed to wanting to know stillness like master teachers before us understood it. When they said things like, "To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders." Lao Tzu, or known today as Lao Tzu. Stillness is where solutions and creativity are found, Meister Eckhart. And the stillness in stillness is not the real stillness. Only when there is stillness in motion In movement does the universal rhythm manifest. The great Bruce Lee. So in that commitment, this book was born, and the 5 laws are universal truths that serve me as guideposts to turn toward love, to find affirmation of life, rather than staying stuck in the hope factor of when something doesn't turn out as I think it should or I expect it to, then there's that moment of despair. And instead, I learned that we're always being guided. And the energy of life, it ebbs and it flows. That's its nature. And it's not necessarily that we have to endure suffering to realize that. It's just that, what suffering is part of life. We go through pains, we go through shifts, and we either get stuck there or we breathe through it. We find our grounding in a hope that is continuous and ongoing, connected to a holy vision that is not our own. It's an omnipotent vision that just works in and through us. It's placed there. It's placed on our hearts, and it's for us to realize. So one of the other things I realized once I discovered that definition of stillness, a state of freedom, is that the archaic definition, the definition of stillness in Pi, which is Proto-Indo-European, it's a single tongue that all modern Indo-European languages are derived from. Stilni is a suffix from the root still, and it means, in addition to tranquility and rest, it means to stand, to put in place. It's related to order. Ness is a state of consciousness, a being, a mindset. So this early definition of stillness, in other words, by ancient definition, stillness is a state of peace and rest established through order. Think about a time whenever you feel most at peace. It's usually, I think, whenever something's set in motion or there's some sort of certainty or clarity about a situation. It all has to do with order. Another part of my experience was realizing that there's a lot out of my control. And so this realization of stillness as it relates to the early definition of order, having tranquility and rest with order, was about getting my inner world orderly, releasing the attachment I have to, again, outcome, and also discovering what was mine to do in every moment. And how this connects back to hope. Can I have some music? How this connects back to hope is that if we are going to be active participants in bending the arc, which could be seeing a united humanity or being part of a united humanity, seeing our dreams and visions come to life, experiencing peace, joy, and prosperity, we must learn to release our attachment to specific outcome or desires, not necessarily to see them as non-possible, but just releasing the ideas that we put on them, the constraints we put on them to be done at a certain time, to just get through it and just enjoy the journey that is life. To stop living on the hope factor and maintain constant communication with a power greater than ourselves that is always available to guide our steps toward that divinely inspired goal. Regardless of what is happening in the world around us, this is how we remain connected to our soul's narrative. Understanding stillness as a mindset of establishing order is about reclaiming agency over what is within our realm of control and bringing order into our inner world so that what is ours to do becomes unmistakable. With this new understanding of hope, this just different lens of seeing hope as a holy vision, being carried by a holy vision toward a divinely inspired mission, I can truly say that it's an ongoing curved path. At one time, it looked like just hoping to be a better mother, a mother that was more connected to the present moment experiences, hoping to heal generational patterns, hoping to understand stillness, hoping to finish the first paragraph of my book, hoping to finish the first chapter, then to finish the chapter that followed, and then to publish it, and then to share it. And today, it isn't just hoping to sell books. What lies beneath each of these accomplishments is the hope of continuing the journey of pursuing the holy vision, to follow the yearning of the heart and perceive sacredness in all things, in all experiences. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "We have to train ourselves to look in such a way that we know when we touch one thing, we touch everything." And while we can't control external forces, we can trust that our spirit is rebellious and indomitable, which is to say that our spirit has the inner strength and resilience to persevere and face challenges without giving up. It's made to endure and progress the arc of hope, because the vision that carries us forward is a holy one. Part of my ongoing path is realizing I missed a couple of things I wanted to share, but that's okay. My hope and my wish for everyone here is to realize that in a greater way, because many of us that are here realize this, is that there's a purpose for each of our lives, and the path is unclear. It's never given to us, unfortunately, like what that path will look like. But with hope, with realizing that ongoing mission of hope, it is possible to achieve one level and then to just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Would you direct your hands to Jessica and let us affirm that blessing that says, "We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you." Jessica, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. So join me in singing this. I breathe in and I breathe out, and I take in, and I give up, and I let love, and I let go. I release, and I know. You sound beautiful. Sing it again. I breathe in, and I breathe out, and I take in, and I give out, and I let love, and I let go. I release, and I know. So we're going to close our eyes just a moment and take in that beautiful gift that was given. To just imagine someone, a child who grows up and whose heart is touched and changed and inspired. Jessica's bookstore leader in her church used to have her write down things, and then she would pay her to do those things because she knew Jessica didn't have the money to go to camp. And so she gave her a job, something to do to earn that money. And when you think about that, just pause for a moment and think about you today and how you never know the impact you are making on someone's life, be it a child, be it a grandmother, be it a stranger, a neighbor, a friend. That those little things that we do, we are each contributing to one another's lives. And so we give thanks for her life and how life grows us and puts us in different places with different faces and different labels and stages that we go through. We know what it is to be a woman, a man, a mother, a father, a child, a daughter, a son, a teacher, a leader, a student, a wise one, a wayward one. That each of us are all and yet none. For in the depths of our being, we are that holy presence. This day, may we learn to see beyond the surface of each and every heart, of each and every face. May we know that that seed of hope is the light within us that says, grow, grow, grow. And you are held in that light. And may we remember and recognize that we are interwoven into one humanity, one body of God, the Creator, expressing. And so we give thanks for one another. We love what we are each becoming and growing into and expressing. And this day we are truly thankful. And for the remembrance to be still within, that even in the grocery store, when you're in that 10 or less checkout line, and the person in front of you has at least 20, you can say, well, I breathe in, and I breathe out, and I take in, and I give out, and I let love, and I let go. I release, and I know. Would you stand? We're going to sing it one more time. I breathe in, and I breathe out, and I take in, and I give out, and I let love, and I let go. and I let go. Go on with your 20 items.